That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about Fatherhood. It's the 12th feature directed by Paul Weitz. Netflix is releasing it June 18th, 2021.
You said the 12th feature? Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. Do I know any of this person's other films?
You do. The Weitz brothers, Paul and Chris, have been around for a while. They both directed separate features. Paul is probably the more prolific one, but they started out with American Pie back in 1999.
Okay.
Down to Earth with Chris Rock, which is, of course, a remake of Heaven Can Wait, which is a film I like. The second remake of Heaven Can Wait. And About a Boy, which is also based on a memoir with Hugh Grant and Toni Collette. They both co-directed those, and this film is probably closest to that in his oeuvre. But among other things, Little Fockers, American Dreamz, Admission with Paul Rudd and Tina Fey, Grandma with Lily Tomlin. And I know I showed you clips of Bel Canto, where Julianne Moore plays the opera singer that I think is held hostage or gets abducted.
I don't recall.
I sent you that clip of Julianne Moore singing opera, and it looks... Anyhow, this is based on a memoir, Two Kisses from Maddy, a memoir of loss and love. We'll get more into that later.
All right. The basic story is Kevin Hart plays a man who's married and his wife is expecting.
Matt and Liz.
We meet them when she's pretty far along in her pregnancy, so she's getting ready to deliver.
And she's played by Deborah Ayorinde of Them, this television series.
She's the lead in Them?
Yeah.
I knew I recognized her.
Yeah.
She's gorgeous.
Yes, she is.
Okay. Liz has the baby, and then while she's in recovery at the hospital, she suffers a pulmonary embolism and dies. And immediately, everyone who knows Kevin Hart's character, Matt, family, friends, co-workers, they're like, this fool can't raise a kid.
His mom, his mother-in-law.
Literally everyone. The postal carrier, everyone is saying this man cannot raise. He's incompetent. He won't be able to do it. We never learn why everyone thinks that. They just don't think that he's capable.
They describe him as like extremely, what's the word?
I don't know because they didn't show it. Like we don't see
it. We don't see it. So he seems pretty responsible.
Yeah, he works in tech.
In Boston.
And they have a beautiful home. So, I mean, unless Liz was making all the money, it just doesn't seem like this man who looks very put together is a complete moron.
Extremely immature. The ladies that...
But he doesn't even seem immature.
He doesn't. I agree.
I'm so confused. But anyway, to wrap it up, we see immediately after the funeral, Liz's funeral, both Matt's mom and Liz's mom say, you need to let us raise this kid.
Played by Thedra Porter and Alfre Woodard, respectively.
Let us raise this little girl. We both live in Minnesota. We'll take care of her. She'll have a great life. And of course, you come visit her when you can. And he says, no, I'm going to raise my daughter. So the bulk of the film is us seeing him doing that from birth until maybe like 5 when she goes to kindergarten.
Melody Hurd then plays Maddy, who is also in Them.
That's right.
Yeah.
I thought I recognized her.
Yeah.
Okay. So that portion, the bulk of the film with him attempting to raise his daughter is ripe with cliches, like just poop gags and like him not knowing how to do her hair, him not knowing how to dress her. I thought it was pretty tired, but it culminates with Matt starts dating another unbelievably beautiful woman.
Played by DeWanda Wise, who's
very excited to date a single dad.
Yeah, like, I want to be a stepmom.
We'll get into it. I'm so confused.
Her character's name is also Liz or Lizzie. They call her Swan to get around the awkwardness with the daughter, and she's in the Spike Lee series She's Gotta Have It.
Okay. So one day, like daytime, when Matt decides to go visit Swan to have sex, and Maddy is in school, Maddy hurts herself on the playground and requires stitches. So of course the school calls Matt, but they can't get a hold of him because he's knocking boots. When he finally sees that he has so many missed calls, he rushes to the hospital and he's freaking out. Because of course he feels irresponsible, and it's the same hospital his wife died in. So because of that incident, he thinks, oh, this lady I'm dating, Swan, is a distraction. So I need to drop her like a hot potato. It's also, so he does. It's also when he goes to take Maddy to Minnesota to visit family. And it's there that Maddy says, you know, I'm so tired of it just being us. I liked having that mom energy with Swan. I want to see my family. And she says, I'm not leaving. I'm staying with grandma. And he says, fine. Because I think that's what's best for you. So then we get the ubiquitous montage of him sort of living the single life, and then during that time he gets a promotion that he's able to take because he doesn't have a kid to worry about, and his first big assignment is to go to Croatia for a month. Mm-hmm. And while he's waiting to get on the plane for this big business trip, he sees like a woman feeding her baby. He sees a college student talking to her parents. And he literally leaves the airport and he leaves the gate to then immediately go fly to Boston.
And his friend / coworker.
And his coworker to then fly to Boston to pick up his daughter. And not a lot of time has passed, and we don't see any discussion between the two of them, except that the last time we saw her with him, she said, I don't want to go with you, I'm tired of you. And then he shows up again, and she's like, I want to come home with you. Okay. So he comes home, and then we see him go straight to Swan's house
with flowers,
with Maddy, basically saying, can we restart where we left off? She says yes. Bada bing, bada boom. All right.
Won't he do it?
Won't he do it? I guess.
Okay, so I think
we need to be delicate about how we address the memoir.
Delicate. So one of my first notes about Kevin Hart's character is because he says he's going to raise this kid, you know, combats his iron-willed mother-in-law, Alfre Woodard, who's my favorite part of this movie. And it takes just one or two little things, like he can't open up the car.
That's right. He has a hard time. I wrote it down because he, after attempting to change one diaper and attempting to fold a stroller, he throws his hands up.
And, I can't do it. And I wrote, oh, fragile spirit. But then increasingly, as I watched this and these people's actions and reactions, I thought, this seems really suspiciously white.
Okay, I'm not going to say that. What I'm going to...
It's a thought I had, but then...
Sure, and it's valid. I'm going to say that I think watching, I'll quote you quoting Dave Chappelle, watching these fragile spirits, like watching Kevin Hart portray this character who just seems like incapable of dealing with hardship and struggle, and then witnessing how his family and friends around him react, my first thought was like, this doesn't align with how I see this doesn't align with like Black family. Like it just like there's no fortitude here. The strength that I would presume that this Black man and his supporting family would have for him does not align with this story. So you do a little research.
Well, so I it's a recurring thought I'm having, and then the end credits, I'm like, oh, it's based on a memoir. This is a true story, because I knew nothing about this film going into it, and then I'm like, they can't. Let me look at the people, and they're a white family, which is interesting, and I don't mind playing with that kind of casting, because it does kind of give this a more universal appeal. And again, the grief and trauma of having to go through this, you know, no disrespect to, like that, and I think it does get some of those elements right despite that. But at the same time, it didn't take care in, I think, correctly conveying how making that switch would translate.
This is tricky. I know people are not going to like this, but I would like to know, people should comment, because like if they watch the film, it just, the strength I associate with like Black family and like knowing that we can take care of our own, it just, that was missing for me. And I would be curious to know if, particularly if other Black people watch this movie and think that it seems off, the way the grandmas are reacting, the way Kevin Hart's character is. I
mean, Alfre Woodard's character flies from Minnesota to Boston without telling him, to make sure that the kid shows up to
a pediatrician appointment. Also, the way...
And lied to her husband about where she was going, played by Frankie Faison. And what felt really white to me, how it happened, how things are going down at the wake, where these women are just kind of bold-facedly talking about how extremely immature he is, like tearing him down. He's just lost his wife, and they're, like, no, he can't take care of this kid.
I know we can't make it about race. It just was very suspicious to me, like the storytelling. Well, I know it's based on a memoir, so it's, hopefully it's aligned with the memoir.
I'm sure. Also, his boss, played by Paul Reiser, who I believe is playing a character named Paul, perfectly fine with him bringing his kid in and almost messing up a presentation, and that's important about selling something.
We'll get into that.
There's that. Also, Matt, Kevin Hart's character, going, his dilemma is, are the choices I'm making best for me or my daughter? It's like, well, you have to provide for her, so really kind of what is best for you will translate into what's being best for this child. And it was really frustrating because also the insistence that she attend this Catholic school, St. Joseph's, that Liz, her mother, wanted her to go to, and this little girl does not want to wear a skirt, and kind of the gendered play that's going on there.
There were a lot of opportunities to do some, like, if it's trying to stick to a memoir and tell this, like, sort of 5-year story in an hour, 45 minutes, it just feels very, like, one step to the next, and there's no sort of understanding of where these people are coming from. But I think, so, and, people often comment that I'm saying things don't feel realistic when it's based on real things. So I'm not going to say that. I think my biggest problem is I don't understand the tone, because I can tell that jokes were written, but it's not particularly funny.
Well, Lil Rel and his other friend, Anthony Carrigan, feel way out of left field.
Well, Lil Rel's character particularly, you're right, both of them just seem so from a different movie.
Yeah, like there was and Kevin Hart's kind of fresh off the wild-eyed success of The Upside, which is itself a remake of a French film I don't like either, called The Intouchables. This touchy-feely thing, playing with, presenting race in a way that's not confrontational or just very easy to swallow in class. This feels very much like that. We're just not going to deal with certain issues. That's how it goes. To be on a positive note, though, and I think this is just the talents of Alfre Woodard. There were a couple of times she got me to tears, because just even though the dialogue's kind of basic, she is really good.
Alfre Woodard's always really good.
That's true, but I think in the early part of the film, I'm like, oh, Kevin Hart is actually kind of dialed down in a way. This is a very sobering portrayal. I can see him also trying to make good on what he was almost canceled for.
There's a scene where Matt is struggling because Maddy won't sleep at night. She's still a baby. And he's like somewhere, like at a school, or I don't know where he was, but he's somewhere where there's a parent support meeting happening. And it's all women talking about their issues, cracked dry nipples and having orgasms while they breastfeed. And Matt just bursts in. I need help. I can't do this. I can't do that. I hated that scene. I hated that scene. Because I don't understand the tone. It's very far from being sincere, but then the way he's delivering his lines is like he's trying to take lines that are not jokes and not comedic, but because of the way he speaks, it's like, are you trying to be funny?
Yeah, I agree. And also, what is really missing is, and then there's a second beautiful woman, also named Lizzie, who's just all for Kevin Hart, fine.
Okay, yeah.
But why is there not a conversation with her saying, like, her contemplating, do I want to be
Why do you want to be a stepmom so bad? But even, as the audience, we understand Matt is a loser. On site, because everyone's like, he can't handle this basic thing that people have to do who have children. But then these two gorgeous women...
Oh, yeah.
Are like Kevin Hart's a handsome enough guy, but in this movie, he's just this.
But we're told he's a loser, but there's no evidence of that.
No.
For a similar-ish film that I think hit that vibe a lot better it's about like 11 or 12 years old now. Imagine that with Eddie Murphy.
Oh. There's another scene where Matt takes the baby to work and she's crying. And he's in the middle of a very important like pitch for whatever tech work he does. He does tech, but he's never had a computer, so I don't understand. He's like giving presentations. But the baby starts crying, and he had learned a trick from the parent support group like to do white noise. And instead of ordering like a $10 white noise machine from Amazon, he runs his vacuum all night long to calm down the baby. So this fool brought the vacuum to work, and in the middle of this important pitch, he leaves to hold his baby while she's crying and vacuum.
And then bring his baby back into the...
Well, because participants of the meeting who were being pitched to, which included a woman, come in and say, oh, you know what works for me? One guy says, I have an app that makes white noise. You work in tech, shouldn't you know that? And then the woman says, oh, skin-to-skin contact. So Matt comes back into the boardroom with his shirt half off, with the baby swaddled onto him. That was too much, and I'm sure that's something that this person in the memoir did, but it just reads as like...
But I'm sure, but in a memoir, like those things read as kind of matter of fact.
It's just the tone
The tone is crazy.
Then his co-worker / friend, Oscar, who looks like he suffers from alopecia maybe.
He's in Barry with, what's his name, the series?
Oh, I don't know.
Bill...
Hader?
Yeah.
He was very distracting. Not the actor, but that character. And I know, again, it's based on a real person, I'm assuming. But just messed up that, like, the tone is so messed up. Then we see when Matt takes Maddy to Minnesota for, her baptism. And she, vomits on a passenger. Again, I don't know. I don't have kids, but I would love to know what single mom or just moms in general think of this portrayal. The things that we're seeing Matt deal with don't seem that that's not something every mom deals with one hand tied behind her back.
Right.
But then this character
I kind of want to
is having a meltdown.
You had brought up Mr. Mom with Michael Keaton and Terry Garr, which I haven't seen since I was a kid. I'm sure that a lot of that seems very dated now, but it kind of made me. I'm sure I'd have some similar complaints, but I'm wanting to rewatch that.
The other thing you mentioned, an opportunity for this movie, I think, to be a little more interesting was this whole dynamic. Because we get the sense that Maddy doesn't like to wear girly clothes because she only wants to wear pants, not skirts. And we have a scene where she goes to get underwear and Matt is showing her cute little panties and she wants boy boxer briefs. And then
he gets them for her.
And all of her troubles at school revolve around the kids picking on her because she dresses like a boy. And that's what ultimately causes her to fall and hurt her head and need stitches. And that that goes nowhere. I feel like that, instead of giving us a play-by-play with these truncated scenes with no context to get us through a 5-year period, I really would have preferred we get some development into why this man, why everyone around him thought he couldn't do it, and then what led him to believe he could do it. I don't need the 5-year, I'm gonna do it, because we really don't see him achieve success with this. He just decides well, I'm gonna try again. Part 2 better be when this girl's 18 and she ends up a stripper.
I think that
nothing wrong with strippers.
Also, the point is the comedy and men having to do things that we've assigned to women in as far as rearing children, but really the importance of how disconnected men are. Heterosexual cis males are from dealing with bodily functions and gender norms and having to explain to their daughter this is the way the world is and I've decided to put you in this school where it's even more rigid
because your mom wanted you to wear a uniform. That was another clue to me is your mom is so hell-bent on you going to this Catholic school. I thought that was interesting.
Well, yeah, again, I don't think that it's certain things just weren't kind of dealt with in a way that could have made this translation, this adaptation possible.
What do you want to give this film?
2.5 out of 5. Again, I do think it does get some subtle nuance right in some of these. I think more often than not, the really dramatic, heavy moments feel okay. It's everything else that doesn't.
I would give it 2 out of 5. I don't think this was a good interpretation of a memoir I did not read.
Okay.
Anything else?
No.
Bye.
Bye.